Good morning. Subcommittee will come to order. Today we're going to hear from the FAA Administrator as well as Department of Transportation Inspector General and the Government Accountability Office regarding the status of the FAA's implementation of the FAA Modernization and Reform Act of 2012. It has been almost 2 years as the subcommittee begins to look ahead to the next reauthorization. It will be helpful to understand how the FAA has implemented the mandates of the last reauthorization. Let me begin by congratulating and commending Administrator Huerta for the FAA's recent selection of the unmanned aircraft system test ranges as directed by the Reform Act. I know this has been sort of a very long and involved process, but one that we hope will be able to yield great benefits to our nation in the near future. The ranges will be used to test and demonstrate UAS technology and capabilities and gathered much-needed safety and operational data. As I understand it, the data will be transmitted to the FAA Technical Center and its industry partners for review and validation, and I welcome any comments our witnesses have regarding the FAA's efforts to implement this UAS provision of the Reform Act. Along with the UAS provisions, there are many other mandates included in the Reform Act. Roughly 200, I know, as the FAA has liked to point out in the past. It is nearly 2 years since the bill was enacted. The FAA has made progress in some areas, but it seems that there remain challenged in others. Admittedly, not every provision or mandate is created equal, but it is still important to hear about the FAA's progress in implementing the law. The FAA's NextGen program is a collaborative effort to modernize the air traffic control system using new technologies that are intended to increase efficiency and capacity, improve safety, reduce aviation's impact on the environment. The Reform Act made significant changes to the NextGen program, and the FAA has made progress in implementing some provisions, but as the GAO and IG point out in their testimony, significant actions are needed to meet the intent of the Reform Act and improve the execution and management of NextGen. For example, the FAA needs to demonstrate benefits such as through the use of ADS-B technology or the implementation of performance-backed GPS approaches, two areas in which the FAA is lacking, according to the GAO and IG. Taxpayers and airspace users have invested a lot of money, a lot of time, and a lot of energy in NextGen, but considering repeated program delays and cost overruns, as well as our ongoing budget constraints, we need to hold the FAA accountable for implementing NextGen. Further, I want to make it clear to Administrator Huerta that I'm closely monitoring the FAA's response to the NextGen Advisory Committee's priority recommendations. This was not an exercise undertaken to validate FAA's NextGen implementation plan, and it should not be treated as such by the FAA. The NAC stakeholders responded to an FAA request quickly and deliberately and produced a set of consensus-based recommendations regarding which NextGen capabilities need to be prioritized given the tight federal budget environment. These recommendations must be taken seriously, and the agency has to show stakeholders that it is taking the necessary steps to address them. The Reform Act also includes provisions intended to allow NextGen to move forward while saving taxpayers money by establishing a process for the FAA to consolidate and realign facilities and services without adversely impacting safety. The law requires the FAA to develop a report with the recommendations and transmit it to Congress. The law ultimately gives the agency the authority to implement congressionally approved and stakeholder-supported recommendations. The FAA has a plan to develop a series of realignment and consolidation reports, and the agency will include stakeholders in the decision, but if delays persist, it will be yet another roadblock in air traffic control modernization. Another similar good governance provision requires the FAA to review its programs, offices, and organizations to identify wasteful practices, obsolete functions, and inefficient processes, and recommend ways to address these inefficiencies. More importantly, it requires the agency to carry out its recommendations and actually address its finding. The FAA has submitted its findings to Congress, but I am not aware of any actions the agency has taken to implement them. Congress did not intend for the FAA to issue a report and just let it sit on the shelf and collect dust. The FAA must act on its recommendations and keep Congress informed on its progress. Despite the delays that we've experienced, there are many important provisions that must be implemented addressing FAA staffing, certification processes, passenger rights, and safety issues. I look forward to hearing the status of these along with the UAS, NextGen, and good governance provisions included in the Reform Act. And with that, I ask unanimous consent that all members have 5 legislative days to revise and extend their remarks and include extraneous material for the record of this hearing. Without objection, so ordered. Now I'd like to turn to Ranking Member Larson for any comments he may make.